So let's speak of your days, what you did, who said, and what is happening. Oh, I am so interested.
My name is Dani Henke. I'm a mixed media sculptor on the island, on Nantucket. I'm originally from Iowa. After I graduated college, I worked in Des Moines for a while, capital of Iowa, and then moved to Chicago. I went to school for visual studies, fine arts. I originally went to school thinking I would do 2D work. I did a lot of things with chalk pastel and drawing. I loved to draw. An education a person at the Artists Association, that's what she was like, oh, we have this beautiful like chocolate clay. Do you want to use that? Absolutely. So that's just been, it's really groggy. It's perfect for sculpture, and I just sat down and started making these faces and these hands. So I don't know if I would have done that maybe with different circumstances. He sent me an email after I'd moved that was, would you rip the wings off a butterfly for a free car? That was all it said. And I thought that was just really interesting because it wasn't, there's a bunch of different things that you can interpret it, because it wasn't, would you kill the butterfly, or maybe the butterfly's already dead. It's like there's all these things you could like interpret it all these different ways, but I loved it because it's a butterfly, a symbol of beauty and innocence, and it's an insect, and it's something that's just very material, like the new car. And I was like, okay, well, I don't really need a car, but I loved the idea, because as I talked to different people about that question, there was no gray area. Nobody was like, oh, I'd have to think about that, like maybe. No, it was like, yes, absolutely yes. Like I would rip the wings off a truckload of butterflies, or no way, there's no reason to like take something's life for my own personal gain. And I couldn't believe that. I was like, these people are totally like full of it, because there's gotta be, I'm thinking like most people would probably have like a line. And who knows, it's not, it's theoretical. But these are the insects, and their titles are things that made me think, well, maybe, if it's like really in front of you, like a flat in Prague, it's like, man, if I could just like own my own place in Prague, there's a good chance that praying mantis or, whatever, I'm just gonna like take its arm off. Like maybe, I don't know. I'd like to think I wouldn't, but it'd be pretty tempting, like to just have a year of travel. You're like, ugh, sorry, grasshopper. You never know. So that's what those were from, and
Did they take long?
Yeah, but it was mostly just thinking about how I made a bunch of the hands first, because they do shrink in the kiln, and I wasn't sure which insects I was going to choose. I just went online and I had so much fun like deciding what things would be what, and everything was measured in millimeters, so that was fun. I'm terrible with math, trying to figure out how big everything was. So I was just choosing the insects that I thought might be visually appealing, and also sort of create the effect you want, because people, especially with like a butterfly, like it's beautiful, but then when it's ripped, its ring, being ripped off, people tend to be like, what's wrong with you? and that's been kind of fun. Like that's my favorite part, is hearing people talk about it. So it's not just about it being something that's beautiful, but it's like starting the conversation, which has been really nice. So
you should write a lot of the comments, which would be nice.
Yeah, that was what was at the opening. It's fun because people were like really disturbed, or it was either people like hated them. They're like, I don't understand like why you would do this at all, or they thought that it was like really clever, and they're like, oh, well, that's great. Like this is a good like conversation. Blah blah blah. So that's been fun. I especially like it when people don't like it at all. I think that's my favorite, because they get so, I've had, one of my friends actually was angry with me, and it's like, the bug's dead, It's like I didn't actually kill it. I ordered it online. So, but this, just like a weird story. I dislike insects, not because I want to kill them, but I'm like incredibly arachnophobic. And I don't actually like when butterflies or ladybugs or anything lands on me, ants crawling on me, any of that. So it was kind of interesting. I like to challenge myself in those ways too, just be like, okay, well, what's your comfort level? And holding insects, even when they're dead, is like pretty, it gives me the willies. And this guy especially, because I had to rehydrate them. They come like all like packaged up, and his body, like they get so soft when you like put them in like a container with like a damp cloth and fingernail polish remover so they don't mold, and you rehydrate them so you can move them around. And he felt alive. I actually pitched him across the room because I was like, it like spooked me because his like legs will stick to you and move, and it was weird. So that was fun. Well, this was part of a series, like a larger series of work that I did last August. Clyde Myers, a photographer here, was approached by a gallery owner about doing a show, and he was just like, I want you to do the show with me. Can you get pieces together? We have 2 weeks. And I was like, maybe. So I'm always down for a challenge. We did that. And this was part of, I made 9 faces. I went in and it's the same dark ceramic as the hands. I just went in and basically made like faces that were discs, sort of readdressing hair. It kind of started with Christy Cure's doll shows, and I was using found doll faces, but they just weren't giving me what I wanted. And then when I had access to a kiln and clay, I was like, I'm just gonna make my own. So that was how that started. I just made a series of faces, and then was thinking of how to address their hair and what would be around them. And this particular piece was just a series of, I think there's like 78 butterflies, and they're all cut out of the Phantom Toll Booth, which was, I'm also a book fanatic, so that was one I liked. I picked it for a couple reasons. One, it is a children's classic, and I liked that the text changed size, like there's different, it was nice. It's a kid's book, so you'll see that like some of the font sizes are different, and I thought that was visually appealing. And then also the pages were yellowed just enough, which was great. I found it at the Take It or Leave It, and I was like, perfect. And that's been kind of important to me too, just using things.
And what's the face?
She actually had my favorite face out of all of them. When I started, she was the last face that I sculpted, and I was having issues as I was going with their eyes, and so she was the first one I put eyelids on, and I loved that she looked so dopey. That was, and she also had like the chubbiest cheeks. But yeah, I don't know, like they all just, I didn't sketch anything before I went. I just sat down and let them sort of
create.
Yeah, just come to life, yeah. Which is nice. It's something that when I draw, I have to sort of look at something, but when I sculpt, I can just it's easier. It just comes a little more naturally, which is nice.
And this piece here?
This piece was a series. It's been another thing that's been nice is the Artists Association here. Their shows have themes, and that's kind of nice to have almost an assignment in a way to when you're making stuff. And it was just small works, and I'd been doing things. I don't think I've done anything with the hands at this point, but again, my friend Clyde is another big supporter, and he was just like, this is the direction you need to head, like the hands are where you should be going. And I said, okay, like let's do, like what should I do for the small works? And I love to tell stories, and I love words, and so somehow, some way, it's one of those things that just sort of pops up in your head. Sign language, because those are hands and those are words. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to say with them, and that was something too. It's sort of just like sculpting. I mean, each letter you don't want it to be really long because it's a lot of work. There's enough, I think there's like 25-ish, I forget how many here, but I ended up deciding that just a little art joke, that this is a silent complement. So they're complementary colors. It's honey amber and deep violet. So they're complementary colors on the color wheel, and that would make them a silent complement. And as I started, I like the way they hung it here, because I actually started, and I worked in order with the hands. So deep was first, and then violet, and then I went this way. So as I got, I think honey and amber definitely have the better craftsmanship. You kind of see the evolution of my sculpting abilities as I worked, and I got a lot faster with them for sure. And I think making A's and B's are my favorites to make, which has been really nice.
Where's your A and where's your B?
In amber, so they're A and B. It's just I don't know. The thumbs. It's been. I think the thumbs are. I do enjoy those. So I'd love to do a series of complementary colors, but this is what I started, and then there's just been other works for other shows that I've been making instead. So this is a series has been backburnered, but.
And do you know how to go by each and name what they mean?
Yeah, all the letters.
Sure. Do you
Sure.
mind doing that? Pointing?
Yeah, sure. So starting at the top, this is amber, so it's A, M, B, E, R. That was an interesting one to make, the crossing of the fingers. And then, and honey, so it's H, O, N, B, Y. And that's a fun one to make too. That was kind of hard. And then that goes to deep, so D, E, E, P, and violet, V, I, O, L, E, T. And I don't actually know sign language, so I was referencing something I printed out, and I looked online to sort of make sure. And it's funny, I may have printed out something, it may be like French, because there's a difference. And so I was talking to one of my friends who does know sign language, and there are differences in the M and N, and I think there was another few, but I like these better because they show the hands upside down instead of, it was just a way to like, visually, I think it's more interesting to be able to spin the hand, or, I don't know, and that's how I chose some of these. I'm not sure if I got to choose, if I was looking at a couple of, and the letters were represented a couple different ways, I chose the one that would either like flip it upside down or turn it on its side.
Would you have anybody in particular that inspired you to take up art, or that inspires you through art?
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be my grandmother, who's passed away. She was constantly, she was a stay-at-home mom, and she was our babysitter for a while. Like, we would be there after school.
So she
wrote poetry, and she wrote plays, and she painted. My grandfather whittled and did woodworking, and she would paint those different things, and they'd make little figures. They never sold anything, but she was the kind of person that just wanted to know everything. She had a 5th grade education, and she got married at 15. So it was one of those things where she always wanted to travel and to dance and sing, and she read and did Sculptor. She did everything.
Was she on a farm?
Yeah.
In Iowa.
Mm-hmm. And so that was something that really, I think it's been a nice background to have my mother being very sensible, and art's not a job. And so when I went to school, I was double majoring in art and advertising, but I don't like to make art for other people. I'm too opinionated. And so I was doing theater. I really liked doing set design and costume design and stagecraft for theater, and sculpt, and I loved being in the studio and sculpting. And she was always really supportive of that. and she passed my first summer out here, and since then it's just sort of like life's too short, do what you want to do, and that's yeah.
And one last question: do you listen to any particular music, or do you listen to any music?
Yes, I actually, when I work, a lot of times I'm listening to audiobooks, which is just something I like to do. It's like, I wish I could read more, but I read pretty slowly. And so listening to books is kind of like being able to keep up with that aspect. But yeah, I have music going all the time. And I listen to a little bit of everything. But I've been revisiting the 90s. I have some friends in a 90s cover band, the Tricky Dicks, and it's been funny because it's like I forget how much I loved that music. So I've been listening to a lot of like the Toadies and Nirvana. Nirvana.
All right.
Yes, he actually went to school for illustration, and but now he does photography. And what's been fun is working with him because I have a nice makeup collection, and so he'll be in need of, like something, we need to bloody someone or like create a fake beard or whatever, and that's been interesting too, creating
What's his
things.
full name?
D. Clyde Myers. It's Dylan Clyde Myers.
So you'd find him on Google, Dylan Clyde.
Yeah, I think it's just D. Clyde Myers.
That's right.
Photography.
Childhood games and memories. I will pray to any God that will answer me. I will pray to any God that will hear me. Oh, ring a rosy.